Hi, welcome to Chats Over Coffee with my yoga teacher, a show where the comedian Peter Brush, that's me, talks to his yoga teacher Kayla McCormack about yoga and some other stuff. Today we talk about tapas, not that one. We talk about the Niyama Tapas, which means self-discipline, and then there's some other stuff about the sun exploding and a tree falling down near Kayla's house. Not falling down, they cut it down. That's quite integral to what we talk about. Right, if you've been enjoying the show, thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoy this one. If this is your first time, then I hope you also enjoy this one. I hope everyone enjoys it. Here's a show.
It was definitely noisy. When I said I was also kind of stressed, but also they were chopping down a tree nearby and you could hear it, definitely.
That's a shame about your tree going.
Yeah, I give up. I give up. I don't know. Who do you go to when your counsel is wrong? I think the thing that bothers me the most about the situation around, protecting nature and protecting trees is like a lot of people who want protection go to things like a conservation area or tree protection orders, TPOs, on specific trees. And those are supposed to offer some protection. The only thing is that conservation areas are only around areas that are of an appealing nature, and they have to be around something specific. So the conservation here in Kirkstall, the area is specifically around Kirkstall Abbey because of the Abbey. That protects the trees, but that's just a byproduct. The real thing is the Abbey that is trying to protect. So the conservation area, all you have to do is give notice of work, and then the government only fight that or try and say no if you're actually going to either damage the tree where it might die, or you're actually going to fell the tree, cut it down completely, and then they might step in. There's no actual protections at all, as far as I can find, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that actually protect the trees for the sake of the trees, or for the sake of climate change. So even someone like the Woodland Trust, massive big charity that's fighting constantly to bring in conservation areas and areas of beauty and stuff like that, still no real protections. A council can just be like, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's it. It's just, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just think it's one of my things that I think a lot of people don't realize how much is not protected. It's just literally fill out a piece of form, a piece of paper, and then you can do what you want.
The wrong people might be listening to this that want to get rid of trees and now know it's pretty easy.
Hopefully, the only people listening to this are people that want to keep all the trees. Yeah. I just think that if something takes longer than a lifetime to grow, there should be laws and protections in to make sure that is 100% the only way to move forward is to take it down. It shouldn't be just I want some more light in my back garden. No more tree. It's that tree took 70 years to grow there. What if the person who comes after you in 20 years when you're dead doesn't, not you because you're young, but my neighbor. What if that person wants a tree there? Well, they can't have it.
I'm writing a joke at the moment. Again, a niche joke, hopefully. Well, not hopefully, but I keep writing niche jokes and it's not very good for a career. But I was trying to write a joke about how being a kid, I found it really good conker, but instead of using it, I've tried to put it out to stud. So it just means planting a conker. And then, in 100 years, you'll have some really good conkers. So it's really stupid to be a kid that is, putting their conker out the stud rather than using it to play conkers with. I mean, that's not going to... It's not going to work at a weekend club, is it? In front of a load of drunk people, it's just a no-go. But I don't know. They always say, write for yourself. And then you realise that there's not, a million of me around that can be audiences to me. Just means you alienate 99.9% of people in the world.
To be honest with you, when people say write for yourself, does that apply to comedians, or is that more for when you write books or stories or something?
I suppose it is actually, isn't it? Yeah, advice to comedians is just dumb down everything, make it really, really obvious.
Yes.
And then deliver it as if it's better than it actually is. And then people get tricked into thinking, I've always delivered that with conviction, so it must be good.
Must be funny.
So,
I didn't think that was very funny, but it must be because he said it is, so.
Saw a thing on about a plant recently. Did you see this news story about a plant that they reckon has some sort of sentience or something? It seems to make choices. Ooh. Yeah, you might have to look that up.
Yeah.
Because apparently it seems to grow in certain ways that suggest that it's thinking about what it's doing.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds up your street, doesn't it?
You haven't even known me that long, and you already know that I would love that.
That's going to cause all sorts of ethical problems if they find out that plants have sentience, isn't it? Because then you're like, oh God, now can't farm carrots because it's like really cruel on the carrot or something.
Well, that is some part of the basis behind the fruitarian diet, because if I've got this right, and I could be reading into this way too much, but the idea is, I think, is that you're only eating the fruiting body of the plant, which is designed to be eaten. So, like obviously, like berries are designed to be eaten so that, you spread the seeds, as birds do. So I think that there is actually a diet out there that's made to, like, so you don't rip up the roots of a plant and eat them. You would only eat the fruiting body.
So eating the root is the problem, not the actual budding flower and stuff like that.
Yeah, because that's made to be eaten. Most fruits are made to be eaten. The plants have made them juicy and tasty and full of sugars so that we want to eat them. So that will go spread the seeds. So if you're really worried, just become a fruitarian and you're right.
I'm not that worried yet, but it'd be terrible, wouldn't it, being like a sentient... Can you imagine being a tree with, like, thinking, and then imagine hating your neighbours as well as a tree? Oh, God. Right. Maybe there's another tree in your area that's really happy about that other tree going, because they're like, oh, finally that prick's moved out.
Oh, God, it's awful. On a more serious note, though...
oh, no, not a serious note.
I do think that there's been lots of studies of not copse, so not small trees like you would have here in your back garden and things like that, but massive old forests, like ancient forests and like the Black Forest out in Germany. There have been studies that have shown that the trees are all linked together through their roots, and that they share nutrients, and if one tree gets a disease, the other trees will give it more nutrients to help it through like a harsh time, and that they're all like are actually connected and in a sense communicate with like chemicals and stuff.
I think fungi do that, don't they? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar to that, but only if they've grown together, if that makes sense. Not necessarily the ones you would get here in your gardens, but yeah, interesting.
So does that mean we're now going to talk about, because I was saying to you the other day that I remember when I found out that the sun was going to like engulf us and we're all going to, but I don't know if I want to say exactly what I said to you in an email because everyone's going to know I made a mistake now.
Because it was after we were talking about the tree being chopped down and how annoyed I was, and I was quite upset by it and there's nothing I can do. And then I kind of said, like, oh, it doesn't matter anyway because eventually the whole world's going to burn up and nothing's going to be left anyway. Yeah. And
then I said, yeah, I know that the sun's going to supernova. But then you said...
And then I quickly corrected you to say the sun is much too small to supernova.
Yes. Mm.
It just dissipates because it uses up all its fuel and then it goes...
I feel like a damn fool now, but... I listened to an episode... Did you ever listen to In Our Time on Radio 4?
No. That does ring a bell, though, but I don't think I have.
Melvin Bragg just talks over academics, really. But they had one about eclipses recently. That was quite interesting. About, they find out more about the sun through a solar eclipse. But I thought you probably know a lot about that sort of stuff if you do astrology, I guess.
Astronomy.
Don't
make that mistake.
Not the quack one, yeah. So, but this is interesting. So apparently in the Bible, in one of the Gospels, they say that the moon was blood red on a certain night, and it sounds like they're describing a lunar eclipse, right? Yeah. When, like, just before the crucifixion. And because they can now backtrack when they had lunar eclipses and such.
It's like clockwork.
Yeah. They actually did track it back to AD 33 in somewhere near Jerusalem. There was a lunar eclipse. Yep. Which is insane, isn't it? Like, it doesn't mean that, he was who he said he was or anything, but, he did exist as a historical figure.
Yeah, Jesus did definitely exist as a human being, absolutely.
Yeah, so there was a lunar eclipse on that week or whatever, and so, yeah, mad. That is that year.
Yeah, there's loads of things. It's because a lot of astronomical events pop up in the Bible that is actually quite interesting, because obviously there's the other one, the Star of David, so when Jesus was born, and then the apostles followed the star, to get to him. And then there's always been like a few little things like, oh, was it just them following the North Star or using the stars as a compass, or was there actually something going on there? There's been tossed around that maybe it was a supernova or something like that, because the supernovas would be visible if they're close enough, obviously. It would be visible during the day. So, right, Betelgeuse, the top star in Orion, so like the main asterism of Orion, that top star in the corner, that one will be going supernova soon. Like, we're kind of waiting for it. We're like anticipating this supernova to happen so we can watch it. And
it's already happened though, isn't it? But it's just, or has it?
Yeah, it's very far away. Yeah.
So we can't see it yet, but it's happened. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because as you look into space, you're looking back in time, because light takes so long to travel to us because space is so big. But so we're waiting for that to happen. If it happens, you will be able to see it in the middle of the day with the sun out. It will be that bright. So there's been like tossed around that maybe the Star of David and when Jesus was born was a supernova or something like that. But then the latest thing that they said, because of the conjunction that just happened. Was it earlier this month or was it late last month? I think it might have been late last month. But that conjunction of some of the larger planets all coming together also make a very bright star. But obviously it wasn't a star, but a very bright object in the sky. And they wondered if maybe that had happened when Jesus was born. And that's what... So again, calculating back, trying to find the exact dates and things like that and see if that's something that could have been going on at that time. It's really interesting. I find that kind of historical astronomy quite interesting. I did do a module of the history of astronomy, and it was quite good.
When I found out that the sun was like going to doom us, ultimately, it did make me sort of feel like there was no point in believing in becoming a ghost or being reincarnated, because like there's a shelf life to that, then, isn't there? Because I've always sort of been hoping that maybe there is something else after death, but if it's just if you become a ghost or you're reincarnated into something else, there's still a shelf life there, isn't there?
Unless you believe in multiple universes.
Oh, good. I'm glad I've got something to cling to.
There you go. So there's either the idea that we are in a cyclical universe, so eventually our universe would collapse in back to a black hole, back to a singularity, and then we would start all over again. Big Bang, poof, and then the Big Bang would start again. So there's that idea.
There's a joke in, you've seen Hannah and Her Sisters, the Woody Allen film?
No, I haven't.
There's a joke where he talks about, like, he's having an existential crisis in it, and he talks about how some philosophers say that the universe is just going to contract in upon itself and we're just going to be living these same lives over and over again for all eternity. And he goes, oh, great, I'm going to have to watch the Ice Capades again.
It might not be exactly the same. But yeah, there's that idea. There's a cyclical universe. That's maybe something to cling to. That very much so lines up with Buddhist thoughts and traditions, because they believe in samsara, which is that, death and rebirth. Well, not all Buddhist beliefs, obviously. There will be different fractions of any religion, but for the most part, there's the idea of death and rebirth. And then you get stuck in that loop, which they call samsara, of dying and being reborn, until you can reach enlightenment or whatever. But this idea that you're stuck in that loop, and then that could be something like that. But then that doesn't necessarily mean... Because the idea of ever actually connecting with another species outside of our own is very, very tiny, because space is so big. Because we would literally have died out before we can reach them. That, like, our sun might have exploded before we could get to the next one. Stuff like that. Mm. But the idea of them actually existing at the same time that we're existing right now, somewhere else in another galaxy, is very much so likely.
Yeah,
it's not impossible. So if you're thinking about death and rebirth, what if you were reborn in another galaxy?
That'd be good. I like variety is the spice of lives.
Right, is the spice of lives. I like it.
Well, that's good.
I don't know. I just mean, like, it's definitely not pointless to try and think about a life after death. Because then there's also the idea that maybe there's this, like, sort of, like, energy, and you kind of join the big pull of energy, and maybe individuality leaves, but as a group you merge or something like that, because obviously energy is never destroyed or whatever.
I like being an individual, though. This is another thing I was always like, when I was told that I was going to go, like, when I used to go to church as a kid, and I was told, oh, you go to heaven and you'll see all of your long-lost relatives once they go. I think, oh, well, I kind of want to, like, branch out. If I can go to heaven and speak to whoever I want, why do I have to hang around with my family again? Like, can I just, like, kind of go and meet Elvis and, you know, Confucius or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like George Orwell or someone, not, like, Auntie Jean.
Our biggest thing when I was a kid was because, you know, they always show pictures of heaven, like, of just being clouds and, like, you know, angels and things like that, and the pearly gates, you know, the gold gates to get into this cloudy city or whatever. And I always think that was really funny because, like, obviously growing up in the 2000s, it was all skate parks and, you know, sunshine and all that. And we were like, we don't want no freaking cloudy city. Give me a skate park. And I always thought that was really funny because my mom was like, well, it's not literal. It's not literal. And we're like, yeah, I don't want to go to heaven. That's boring.
I remember being terrified about the idea of even going there because thinking like, oh, what if I don't like heaven and I've got to live there forever? Like, but it's all like, well, your conception of something is firstly like it probably wouldn't be if it did exist and it was some sort of paradise. You wouldn't really be able to conceive of that anyway, would you? Like probably, and because if we all had to construct our own heavens, it would all be very individualistic anyway, wouldn't it? So you know, there'd be certain people that wouldn't be there. Like if it was up to me, like I'd have my own door policy, but it wouldn't be an earthly construction. It's like, I mean, I'm not like a believer or anything, but I do think that I remember John Lloyd, the producer of QI, had like when he was about 50 or something, had a really big midlife crisis, and he sort of like read everything and just like became a little bit more open to, just became much more agnostic, I think, than certain. And I'd say that I was very similar. Like, I don't think it's so difficult to know things for certain that are trivial, you know, rather than the big things. And I remember he was sort of saying that, you know, if there really was like an omnipotent creator, as a human being, we would have absolutely no concept of what the motives behind some all-powerful being would be. You'll end up just equating their motivations to being similar to human motivations because you can't understand someone on a different level in the same way that an ant wouldn't be able to conceive the motivations of a human being that's doing certain things, perhaps, or you know, 10 times that. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I think if you had an atheist mindset where I remember Stephen Fry talking about how evil God must be to like make kids have cancer and stuff like that. But like in some ways, like, you know, if he did exist, you couldn't
quantify it like that.
Yeah, you couldn't. So I don't think you have to be certain about these things, really. Like, why do you have to pin your mask to one thing? I mean, I'm always changing my mind about everything anyway, so I'm not going to like...
I just think that, in general, a lot of religion and spiritualism and all those kind of things, they give people a sense of comfort that maybe helps with life and death and understanding that we will die as individuals and that we'll lose family.
I think there's that, but I think that one thing that I've sort of learned as in my own sort of, since I started on the mindfulness journey, I hate saying it, sounds awful, doesn't it? But just the idea that you have very little control over what you think and do and events in your life, it can be quite terrifying to think about how little in control, as I said before, of even what you're thinking. You don't even know why. You know, you're not in control of the next thought that comes into your head. You're not even in control of that, let alone stuff that's going on in your life. There's just so much chance and luck. The idea that you've got so little control can be so terrifying, or I sort of find it actually quite not comforting in a way, but I feel much more at peace with the fact that we aren't in control of so much. But I think that that's another aspect of why, if someone, that's equivalent to saying that, well, God's in control, and I put my faith in the idea that he's actually like in control rather than me. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same liberation.
It's the same thing. And this comes back to our point about vocabulary and being attached to different vocabularies to try and explain what we mean. You know, if you say like, I don't have control over my life, that's not something that we can have control over. We can't. We cannot control what the weather's going to do, especially on an individual basis. Like, I cannot control if it's going to rain on my house. I have no control over that. So there's so much in our lives that we have no control over. But if you wanted to say like, but that's okay, I'm happy with that. That is a weight off my shoulders that I don't have to. What if you did have to control everything? God, what a life that would be. You'd be working all the time trying to make sure your grass is getting enough water and it's not snowing too much to annoy your neighbors and all this kind of stuff. And that's just the weather. Forget about everything else.
The bus didn't turn up because you wanted snow again.
Exactly. Like, it'd be awful. So I'm glad we don't have. That's a weight off your shoulders. And then, like you said, if you want to think about that in terms of like saying, well, that's, that's you having faith in God to take care of you. Well, that's the same kind of thing. It's just different vocabulary, really, isn't it? You just letting go, letting what happens happen, because you have no control over it.
It's the same liberating feeling to think that, not that I think someone else is taking care of it. It's not that. It's the fact that
I'm not taking care of it.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So.
Like I've had, some points in, like I would hope that is not all the time every day, but I have some points in my life where I look back and I think like I had too much on, I had too much going on. I had overcommitted myself, too many yoga classes, too much schoolwork, too much of this, whatever. I had too many things going on all at the same time. And then something happened that was quite stressful that needed sorting out, whether it was like an issue with family or with the house or something like that. And it was so nice when you have someone in your life that you can just reach out to and you can just say like, I need you to sort this. I cannot take another thing. And then they go, don't worry about it. I'm going to sort it out for you. I'm going to sort out your health insurance, whatever it is. That just, you call someone, family member, partner, whatever, and they're like, God. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take it. God. And they're like, I'm going to take it. And then you can just go, right, that's it. I'm not thinking about it, because you've got enough on to be thinking about. It's such a, it's so relieving. It's such a nice thing to be able to do. And I suppose to some extent, that's the idea of that you can do that on a higher level, like not having to worry about trying to control every little thing, just letting it go and seeing what happens.
So we'll just quickly talk about tapas then.
Yes, sure. Yeah. So
I can make some crappy jokes about why that
you're
sounds
definitely
like
gonna make some,
because isn't tapas rubbish and all that stuff. It is. I did once go to a tapas restaurant, and I'm still angry about it now because there were like, I don't know, 12 of us, and we didn't order enough, even because the person, there's always like a leader, isn't there, when you go out? Like, we'll do this because no one can decide. And we ended up ordering very, very little, and it was too expensive for what it was as well, and I just got extremely angry. But the train wasn't on time and they didn't get there, but because they weren't there, everyone was like, we best leave a bit of food for her. So they just piled up a plate, and she had this massive plate of food. So if you ever want to cheat people at tapas, just don't turn up on time, and then they'll just make sure that you've got a full plate of food. And I was just like, I wish I'd have pulled that.
But that is not the kind of tapas I'm talking about. Tapas, the niyama, is self-discipline.
Which you need if you order tapas, because you're going to be starving, so you've got to pace yourself.
So, tapas, like I said, is self-discipline. And I don't know, that's a funny one because, you talk about living a life of contentment, but then the next one is self-discipline. It's like, well, surely, a lot of the time people think of discipline as being working really hard. But really, that can be the opposite of what you need. It depends on what kind of person you are. To have self-discipline could be not to give in to the desire to work yourself to the bone. Nobody wants to come away from something with burnout. And so I think having the self-discipline to rest when you need to rest is also important. But the word also originates from the word for fire or ignite. And so a lot of people translate it as having a passion. So I think it's really good because I think that you can relate that to physically heat, actually burning in heat. So in your body, when you get on a yoga mat, you might have a really strong practice, which is why last night's class was so hard. Because the idea was that you are literally burning or warming yourself up to get rid of, I don't want to say impurities from a sense of a physical actual impurity. I just mean literally you're working hard and you're a bit hot, you're a bit sweaty, and you're really having to concentrate on what you're doing and your breath, or you'd end up getting lost or being so tired that you just or just giving up kind of thing if you let yourself get too distracted. So there's that focus that happens there, and I think that is really important. And there are different styles of yoga that focus. I think it's Jivamukti yoga, if I'm saying that right. And that style of yoga focuses on being hot. So it is a hot yoga style. You practice in a hot room. You're not technically allowed, I say allowed, but that's harsh, you know what I mean. You're not supposed to drink any water or anything during the class. The classes can be quite long, like longer than an hour, and you're just sweating buckets. And the idea is that you are literally trying to cleanse yourself, but also your mind a little bit. But it's a very forceful practice. Again, probably even more forceful than Ashtanga. So, you have to decide whether that's what you need or not. So that's where it comes back to the idea of self-discipline in terms of knowing that that's not the kind of thing that's good for you, and you need to rest instead or take a more relaxing style class. And then the other thing as well is like, every time you decide not to eat a whole cake rather than just a slice, bam, self-discipline. Every time you decide not to eat or drink too much, before you have a class, like at the night before or something like that, that's a bit of self-discipline. Every time you turn up to yoga, you lay out your mat, that's self-discipline. So it's a really easy one to practice on a regular basis, and it's different for everyone. Your turn, go.
Well, I'm pretty self-disciplined, so I'm not. I think I've nailed that one.
I think you're pretty self-disciplined.
Honestly, I'm so good at giving stuff up. Everything fun, I've given up pretty much. But
everything fun. Oh man!
Really good at stopping them all. So.
Is yoga not fun for you anymore?
No, it is fun. I haven't given it up, have I?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go.
I don't know how natural that is, though. You're just naturally better at things like that, aren't you? But it's like, I don't know, if you've got an addictive personality, it'll...
Self-discipline will be harder for some people than other people.
And I don't think I've got an addictive that sort of personality at all. So it's not really... It makes you sound like you think you're better than other people. You're just sort of saying, I just stopped drinking, it was easy. And, but I'm not saying...
It's a proven fact. I mean, that's why those, we call them pay-to-win games, the little games you get on your phone where you can buy, packs of something, and they're supposed to be tiny prices, but usually they're not
those fixed
anymore.
Odds machines in betting shops and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And some people, I hate it. I actually hate it. I've realized, within the last few years, that I am risk adverse. I didn't want any risk ever. And betting is a very risky thing, obviously. Even just using like you're saying, one of those little machines, like a slot machine or something, even something like that, it bothers me. It really bothers me. I don't want anything to do with it. But I know other people will have a really opposite reaction where they just feel like they just need that one more go, that one more pull on the wheel, that one more thing. Yeah. And then their self-discipline to stop doing that is actually going to take an active, conscious decision. Whereas for me, I'm adverse to it in the first place, so I don't even have to try. So that wouldn't be where I would practice my self-discipline, because it doesn't need any.
Does that link with the previous Niyama? And it's not like your mindset, if you're doing something like that, if you're gambling, maybe it's very specific, I'm not sure, it would be, I'll just do one more because then I'll be not happy, but then I would have achieved the thing, or just one more. If your attitude is more about the experience or whatever, and it's a lot easier to just draw the line and say, so that seems to me to be almost kind of similar to what we were just previously talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of the yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, and their 10 yamas and niyamas, so that the 16 limbs of yoga. I know that they're always shown linearly, 1, 2, 3, 4, but really they're so connected. You could probably put them in more of a diagram with circles and lines, because they're all very connected, and they all kind of repeat or link back to each other. So definitely, absolutely. And maybe even just maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't like mornings, not for any real reason. I don't like mornings because they make me sick, but say if you had a non-physical reason to not liking
Claire
mornings.
hates mornings, and she says that she hates the smell of mornings. There's a smell in the morning. Just, that she just doesn't like. It just reminds me of Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now, sort of saying, I hate the smell of a morning, or something.
That's great.
But it's not napalm, it's a different smell.
Not napalm. Yeah. Just the morning in general. Yeah. but yeah, say if you hated mornings, but maybe she wanted to practice a little bit of self-discipline, just to see, just to practice it. Maybe for a week, get up early, whatever that means to you. That's different for everyone, but get up early just to practice self-discipline, not for any other reason. assuming, again, there's no medical side behind anything like that. You know, that's the kind of thing. Or maybe you just need more time in your day so that you can practice your yoga. And the only way to get that is to go to bed a bit later or get up a bit earlier. And
my friend in York that meditates an hour a day gets up early to do it every day.
Yeah.
And says that she sleeps amazingly anyway because of it, that it's totally worth doing. And so she's up at 7 or something to make sure she gets a whole hour in. Haven't got up to an hour yet, but
I don't know. I think that when I start to go for longer than about half an hour, I do start to end up going down more of a contemplation route. And don't get me wrong, it could be very productive. Like, I'm not necessarily worrying or going down some weird spiral. I might just end up contemplating something like self-discipline or contentment or something. But that's not what the aim is it? So
oh no, other benefits that aren't the aim. I mean, it's still fine, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I have had a really good experience when I went on a Tai Chi retreat years ago now, and one of the things that he did on, like, as an offer to the students if we wanted to participate was in 2 a.m. we were to get up and go down to our room that we were using for our Tai Chi. It's like a conference room in a nice hotel, but the big empty room that we were using. So obviously I'm like, well, I'm on a retreat, I'm going to do it. I'm not gonna not do it. So 2 a.m, get up, wander down in my pajamas, because he said don't worry about getting dressed or anything, just come down, as long as you're not naked. So it's like, right, me and my mother-in-law wandered down in our pajamas, sat down, and it was such it was surreal, but not in like a creepy kind of way, just like in a really, like, because it was the middle of the night, it was really quiet. Like, there wasn't a single car on the road, you couldn't hear anything. And then you sit there, and it was a quiet-ish kind of area anyway, and it was so quiet, and he just like sat us down. We didn't talk really at all. Like, that was one of the things, like, please don't talk when you come down, just come down quietly and sit, kind of thing. So we came down, we sat, and then he kind of like introduced it. He's like, right, this is the the sound of silence meditation, and the idea is to try to hear whatever you hear when there's complete silence. So usually that's like some sort of ringing in your ear, maybe even your heartbeat. But it was just it was a really amazing experience. And a part of me feels like, I should have the self-discipline to do that more. Like, I would like that. I would like to come down in the middle of the night, sit in my living room, I don't know, in the dark, and just listen to silence. But I also sleep with my husband, and I think if I had an alarm going off at 2 a.m, he'd probably get it. So I've tried to tell myself that I don't do it because it's for him, but maybe it's more because I don't have the self-discipline to get up at 2 a.m. and do a meditation. But yeah, there you go. That's what I was going to say.
Sometimes I don't know, I think you do just have to make yourself do things. You have tricks to make yourself, like, it's like having a meditation app's quite good because you get nudged when you haven't done it. It's not that you've got no excuse. There was excuses, but
and you can justify not doing stuff, so you have to also be honest with yourself.
You can always justify not doing stuff. Yeah, definitely.
It's something I haven't done for a long time, is I haven't practiced any of my stronger inversions. So let's say arm upside down arm balances, and like forearm stands. Even a headstand, to be honest, is probably the last time I did it was with you guys in class.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? That was...
It was good.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I did all right there. So.
Very good. But, like just things like that. And I think, like, I push myself in my classes that I teach. I know I do, because I'm achy today and stuff like that. But in terms of, like, doing the more complex poses or the poses that are a little bit harder, I really would prefer to teach those in person so that I know you're using a wall or you've got something handy, and I feel more comfortable doing that. But that means I'd never do it myself anymore, because I tend to only practice when I teach, because I teach 8 classes a week and I'm pretty tired. So my personal practice when I do it is a lot more gentle, because I want to just have stretch out those sore muscles and relax. But I do think that maybe I should just, maybe when it's hot and sunny and stuff, I'll put a bit of effort in the beginning of spring or summer and try and practice a bit more of my own inversions or something. But it's like you said, you can always justify why you haven't done something, and it's up to you to know that if that justification is really, really a justification or if it's an excuse. I
think we've been on for ages now, so
yeah, we have.
self-discipline.
Yes, I think we should finish as well.
Yeah.
So. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. I really do. I hope that it brings a little bit of smiles to your face, a little laughter to your life, that kind of thing. Please do share if you enjoy it. It does make a difference. You know, people don't see anything these days unless you tell them about it. So please do share. Find us on social media. Tell your family if you're enjoying it. And if you want to get in touch, get in touch. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Any questions? Blah, blah, blah. Have a lovely day. Bye.